Blood splattered across the blacktop before anyone understood what was going on. The crack of 3 gunshots bounced off the steel frames of parked Harleys, sending bikers scrambling for cover. When the smoke cleared, every man froze. The person lying on the ground wasn't one of them. It was a skinny, dirt-covered teenage boy, maybe 16 at most, who had thrown himself in front of a biker's only child seconds before the bullets flew. His small body took all 3 hits meant for her. The little girl's scream tore through the parking lot, but the boy didn't even flinch. He just looked up at her with fading eyes, like saving her was the only thing that mattered. If you believe kindness, second chances, and real humanity still exist in this world, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The story starts earlier that same afternoon, just outside a small desert town in Arizona, where the Hells Angels kept their bikes shining and their lives rough but loyal. Among them was Cole Thompson, a broad-shouldered biker with jet black hair, tattoos crawling down both arms, and a heart that softened for only one person: his daughter Emma. She was 9, bright-eyed, always carrying a pink backpack and wearing her hair in braided pigtails. Cole had lost his wife years ago, and Emma was the only thing that kept him grounded in a world still full of chaos. Every biker in the club saw Emma as family protected, cherished, untouchable. But someone else saw her, too. Across the street, tucked behind a rusted dumpster behind an old strip mall building, lived a homeless boy named Luke Harper. He had been drifting from town to town ever since his mom died of an overdose, and his dad disappeared into the system. Luke survived on leftover food from diners, the occasional kindness of strangers, and pure willpower. He slept under broken neon signs and inside abandoned sheds. But despite everything, he carried something rare, a heart that still believed people could be good. He often passed by the Hells Angels garage, watching the chrome, the roaring engines, and the loud laughter. To him, they looked like the family he never had messy, rough around the edges but fiercely loyal. Luke especially noticed Emma. She reminded him of his little sister who had died when he was 10. The way Emma smiled, the way she talked to people like everyone deserved kindness. It was impossible for him not to feel protective of her, even though she didn't know he existed. That morning, Luke woke up shivering behind the dumpster, clutching his torn backpack. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His stomach hurt, his head spun, but he pushed himself up and started walking. When he passed the biker shop, he saw Emma run across the lot waving a drawing she'd made for her dad. Luke smiled faintly. He wished someone drew pictures for him. He was about to move on when he noticed a black SUV creeping around the block. The windows were tinted, the tires too clean, and the way it rolled slow. Watching put Luke on edge. Something about it felt wrong. Inside the garage, Cole and the guys were elbows deep in engines, laughing and talking trash, totally unaware that trouble was coming. The SUV parked far enough away to look casual, but close enough to keep eyes on Emma. One door cracked open, and a pair of cold, angry eyes studied her. Luke knew that look. He'd seen it on the faces of men who controlled his mother, men who lived off violence and desperation. Without even thinking, he grabbed his backpack and followed Emma from a distance, making sure she stayed in sight. When Emma bent down to tie her shoe near the edge of the lot, one of the men from the SUV stepped out. He wore a hoodie, nervous energy buzzing off him. Luke's instincts screamed. He moved closer, pretending to dig through a trash can. Then another man climbed out, gripping something metallic under his jacket. Luke's heart pounded. In a split second, he understood. They weren't here for Emma. They were here for the bikers. The Hells Angels had shut down a local drug operation months ago. Revenge had been simmering ever since, and today it showed up with guns. Emma stood up and took a step toward her dad. The men raised their weapons. Luke had no gun, no phone, no family. No logical reason to risk his life except one. He couldn't let another little girl die. Not again. As the bikers joked around over a busted carburetor, the men charged. One aimed his gun at Cole, but Emma stood closer, right in the line of fire. Luke didn't think, he just ran. He sprinted with everything he had. Emma turned at the sound of his shoes slamming the pavement, her eyes going wide just as the first bullet ripped through the air. Luke launched himself forward. The gunshot shook the ground. Fire exploded through Luke's side. Another shot hit his shoulder. He kept moving, fighting the pain, putting his body between Emma and the gunman. A third shot slammed into his back. Luke crashed down on top of her, wrapping his trembling arms around her tiny body, trying to shield every inch of her. The bikers spun around as the shots echoed. Chaos erupted. The attackers bolted for the SUV, but the club moved faster. Engines roared to life. Boots pounded the asphalt and fists flew. Within minutes, the men were tackled, disarmed, and pinged to the ground. Sirens wailed in the distance, but Cole saw only one thing: the boy bleeding out beside his daughter. Emma sobbed uncontrollably, clutching Luke's hand. Cole dropped too, his knees shouting for help, pressing his hands against the wounds. Luke's breaths were shallow, his vision blurred. He tried to speak, but his voice failed. All he could do was look at Emma alive, unharmed, and that was enough. Cole had seen everything life could throw at a man: fights, betrayal, death. But nothing hit him like the sight of a homeless stranger dying for the one person he loved more than anything. The bikers lifted Luke as carefully as they could, keeping pressure on his wounds while paramedics rushed in. Blood soaked through Cole's fingers, but he didn't let go. He climbed into the ambulance with Luke, refusing to leave him alone, and silently promised a boy he didn't even know that he would not let him die forgotten. Hours crawled by at the hospital. Emma refused to go home, even though she shook with fear and exhaustion. The doctors fought to stabilize Luke, and Cole paced the hallway like a caged animal. The bikers filled the waiting room, leather vests and grim faces making everyone else nervous. But they were all there for one reason: the kid who had saved their little girl. Finally, the surgeon came out, tired but hopeful. Luke was alive barely. The bullets are torn through his lung, shoulder, and ribs. He'd need a long, hard recovery, and without proper care, he could still lose his life. Cole did not hesitate. He stepped forward and told the hospital to put every bill, every surgery, every treatment under his name. When they asked about Luke's legal guardian, Cole growled that the boy was never going back to the streets again. Days turned into weeks. Luke woke up slowly, confused in pain but alive. The first time he opened his eyes fully, he saw Emma asleep in a chair pulled up to his bed, her small hand wrapped around his. The bikers took shifts watching over him, bringing real food, clean clothes, and a small stuffed bear Emma insisted he needed. When Luke tried to apologize for being a burden, Cole shut him down with one hard look. Luke wasn't a burden. He was family, whether Luke believed it or not. The first time Luke was strong enough to sit up without help, he cried. No one in his life had ever fought for him. No one had ever chosen him. But here, surrounded by rough men with loud laughs and bigger hearts, he felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. He felt like he belonged. Cole handled the paperwork himself. The day Luke was officially placed under Cole's guardianship, the entire club fired up their bikes at once, engines roaring through the neighborhood like a battle cry of celebration. Luke stood there, throat tight, tears slipping down his cheeks. He had spent years invisible, surviving alone. Now he had a bed, a home, a family, and a little girl who hugged him every morning. Grateful he existed, he hadn't just saved Emma once. He saved her every day by being the big brother she never had. This Cole never expected but always needed, and the quiet miracle the Hell's Angels didn't know their broken world was waiting for. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that remind the world that real heroes still exist. Drop a comment and tell us which part hit you the hardest. Your words mean more than you know.